Katie Kim, we're live on Women Investor Wednesdays. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, Beth. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. I've spoken to, I think, over 80 women, and you are our first person that can talk to development.
Oh,
so
I like being first.
I do, yeah, right? Absolutely. If you're not first, you're last, right?
That's right. That's right. Always.
So before we get started, I like to just share with the audience why we're doing this. During COVID, I had heard a stat that of all of the investors in commercial real estate, only 3% were women. And of that, half were inherited or women who were signing on their husband's guarantees. So that meant that I was part of 1.5%, and I was just shocked. And I thought I need to do something about that. And so I started talking to my friends, all who are in various positions in the commercial real estate industry. And I would say, do you invest? Yes. Where do you invest? The stock market. Okay, wait a minute. You rep Starbucks, you find a site for Starbucks, but you don't invest in the deal. And well, I don't have $1 million. I'm like, okay, you don't need $1 million. Well, it's too complicated. You're going to love this. The math, which we're going to talk about, because I know you love money math.
I love math.
I know. And and that's a problem for our gender anyway, for societal like norms, but which we can talk about.
Yeah.
And so I've kept digging, and then finally women were saying, well, I don't know any other women doing it. Oh, aha. So I said, let me see what I can do about that. So it was during COVID. I did a virtual summit. There's 100 women. I had 9 women that were investors talk about how they got started, what they invested in. They were invested in all different asset classes. And since then, we've done 4 live summits. Next year will be our 6th. And because I started looking for where can women go and learn about investing, and obviously Invest Her, which you're going to be speaking at in a couple of days in Orlando. So all of you that if you want, and especially those of my followers that are in Florida, since I'm in Florida, drive up to Orlando. I went last year. It was great. But besides Invest Her, there wasn't any really opportunities for women to go learn about investing, especially commercial investing versus residential. So we've had 5 years of the summit. It's great. But I've realized since I keep the summit small, only 250 women, we cap it for the intimacy, because now women are starting to invest with each other, which is phenomenal. I figured, how can I get the word out better and more? And that's when this podcast came up. And I said, I can interview 52 women a year, one a week. And sometimes now we're doing some pre-recordings for when I travel. So I think we're over 80 women and that I'm interviewing that have invested, that have knowledge of investments, teach investments, teach development. So welcome to the show. That's why I'm doing this, because I want to get that 3%. My goal used to be 10, but this year at my summit, I had a theme called Think Bigger, you can see. And so now I want to get it up to 25%. So forget the 10, 25% women investing.
I think I need that shirt.
Yeah.
Does it have your logo on the side? It should.
No logos. But for 4 years, I talked at the summit about overcoming fear for 4 years. And this year I said, screw that. We're going to throw that fear. We've been talking about that for 4 years. Now we're just going to think about moving forward and thinking bigger.
Yep. Let's go.
So tell everyone the Katie Kim story. Tell them your origin story, as my son would say on his podcast, where he talks about superheroes.
Oh, that's awesome. My origin story. So I actually was born and bred in a construction real estate development family. And so I grew up around it. And to me, I never realized I was the only woman in the room, because I was either with my mom or my dad or my uncles or my acting uncles, I should say. A lot of our subcontractors are kind of my adopted uncles. But it was really interesting because I I never realized it, but I learned drafting in high school so I could help my mom with floor plans. I would be constructing walls. I'd go to soccer practice and then pour concrete. I mean, it's just what I knew. It's what I grew up with. And so like I always joke now with my parents, I'm like, as a victim of child labor law, because I was always working, which didn't feel like I was always working then because it was fun, and I joke with people. I was like, yeah, I was doing fix and flip before it was actually called fix and flip. It was like our family bonding time. And I, grew up and I loved math. I loved drawing. I loved visualizing things that like how they could be, because that's what we would go. My mom would buy this house that we'd all walk in there and be like, oh, great. And I'd scrape mastic off floors, and I got poison ivy in the dead of winter cleaning out a pool one time. I mean, like so many stories I could tell, but I was able to see at a young age of how you can transform that and what the work that goes into it, and not, putting a good amount of quality into it, but not overpaying and like, it's not to the nines because it doesn't need to be, and so really having that balance. And I didn't really think I wanted to take over the family company. So when I went to college, I actually got a master's degree in computer science. And I went and did a stint in the corporate world where, as fast as I can tell you this, I would work with technology 3 to 5 years to market and find strategic profitable solutions and then implement them. So kind of what I did with construction projects, but on the tech world,
Right.
And loved it. But then I started realizing there wasn't really a fulfillment in it. And so I went to work for a small startup, and then actually went back and ran the family construction company for about 11 years. And then finally, again, that fulfillment urge came up, and I'm like, I want more. I want to do more and have more of an impact. And I launched our developer for fee service in 2015 for some of the reason you just talked about. Was we had a lot of clients come to us saying, hey, I want to get in development, or I want to expand my business, and I want to get into the real estate, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And so I was like, well, we can do that for you, and we can guide you and talk to you through the process and hold your hand and maybe do some of it, but you get all the decisions because you're taking all the risk. And so I launched that in 2015. Really, it took off like wildfire with word of mouth, and like one project led to another and another. And then really it was last year at the Investor Con you were talking about in Austin, where I was hearing all those statistics of women like not investing and the financial illiteracy with women, that really was God like hitting me over the head with a frying pan to launch the Real Estate Development Academy, which I'm happy to say I did towards the end of the year and really the beginning of this year in 2025. And I keep it small. I keep it by invitation only, so I can really work with the individuals and help them through the process and help them get out of their head, right? That paralysis by analysis. And I'm definitely passionate about the money math, as you mentioned, and the knowledge nuggets, which we do on our socials to teach that financial literacy and to get people comfortable with the terminology, because it is getting in the game. You got to speak the language. And so that's really what brought me full circle. And I still develop. That's what everybody always asks. I'm like, I can't stop. Once it's in your blood, you kind of can't. And like when I graduated college, the first thing I did was bought my first condo, and then I bought one a year later. So I've kind of done a lot of investing, and I've constructed and developed a lot of mixed use, industrial, commercial, you name it. We've probably built it, designed it, developed it, and except the jail. That's like the one I've realizing I have not done. I'm not speaking that into existence, but yeah.
What's
but
your
in a nutshell,
favorite?
that's it.
What's your favorite investment that you ever did?
A positive cash flow. No, that I ever did. I have to say, the one that's near and dear to my heart always is the Tresker's Bakery project. That was the first project we launched in 2015 when we did our developer for fee, and it was helping these bakery owners expand their business to 3 times the space for 1.5 times the cost. And the scrapes on our knees we got putting that one together is definitely, there's some scars, but it was so fulfilling because the owners got into this project for $50,000, and wow, the investors received 353% return in 4 years. And it was wow, all because of how we structured it and doing the math and some of more of the complicated structures. But but for somebody like myself who and my team who knows the economic incentives and the different structures, they wouldn't have been able to do it financially. It wouldn't have
So were
happened.
you an investor in that deal?
Yes, I don't. If we do developer for fee, I don't ever say we'll invest. But if they ask us, we do have a I would say criteria that we'll invest up to half of our fee as long as it fits our buy box.
Awesome. What is your buy box?
So our buy box depends kind of. It does shift. I know people have that specific, but ours looks at a whole portfolio. So we look at a lot of times, is it more of an equity and appreciation play? Do we have that bucket and that silo filled? Or is it a cash flow? Or is it a write-off? Because there's a lot of times we'll go into a project as a GP or LP with a minimal return, but getting more of those write-offs and depreciation. So it has to fit one of those verticals of what we're looking for at that time.
What do you do all different asset classes on the developer for fee?
We do. We've done everything from subdivisions to urban infill. That's, I think, one of my favorite ones is taking something, again, because that's what I grew up with, right? Is taking something that nobody thinks is pretty or is forgotten and like make it a destination, make it the focus of the community. We've done industrial, we've done flex space. We're doing some tilt up here in the Texas Triangle. And offices, multi-tenant. I like multi-tenant because you have, I call it a little bit of an insurance policy. You know, if one tenant moves out, it's not that like, you know, you're underwater, hopefully. But like you have other tenants that help in time frame wise. So I like that from my risk mitigation standpoint.
Yeah. You mentioned before we got on the call, you have kids.
Yeah.
What are their ages?
So they're 12 and 14 right now. Yep. Just about ready to turn.
Is there child labor involved with them also?
Yes. Yeah. We actually have our family health and wealth meetings each week. So we talk about what should stay, what should go, what should grow, and what should stop. Right. So whether it's a meal planning or my son, actually, when I put together the coursework for the academy, I made my oldest son go through some of the modules. So he's created his personal financial statement and he's started to evaluate properties on the East Coast. That's where he wants to end up. And he loves looking at opportunities. I actually just had him look at Felicia's Highmark Distillery, her bourbon investment, the Barrel Club. Yeah. And I make him, come with questions and I have them ask, the provider, whoever's doing the investment, and really own that. And that started in COVID, actually. We would always bring them along with job sites, but when COVID hit, we started bringing him into the meetings, really like how I grew up. And so he started to learn how everybody makes money. And that's kind of their question. I was like, that's a job. I can make money doing that. I can make money doing that. I'm like, you can. Now you need to see, is that the lifestyle you want, or do you need to supplement?
That's, when you were talking about child labor with youth coming home from soccer practice, I played softball and my parents bought a motel on the beach. And after school, and I'd go to softball practice, and then from 6 to 10, I was the front desk person at the motel on the beach. So I do my homework, but if someone drove up in the parking lot, came in and wanted a room in the motel, that was my job. Yeah. And then on the weekends or during summers, I'd clean the motel rooms. That was a terrible job. I didn't mind doing the front desk. Cleaning the motel rooms was gross. But
I had to clean the office.
But I got paid. So it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
So what do you think? So you follow Katie on I know I follow you on Instagram, and I love the money math, because when I was researching and asking women about why do they not invest, the math thing came up a lot. I don't understand math. And I can tell you that I remember back in, I think I was 4th grade at an open house. I remember my sister, Christine, I went to a Catholic school. I remember her telling my parents, Beth is going to be great at English and history, but forget math and science. And I literally heard that. And then for the rest of my life, what do you think I majored in college? English literature. I
Oh.
have taken more math for dummies classes, and I'm really good at math. And especially in our world, there's in investing, there's not that much math, but the intimidation of it, and women in society have been told, like my parents were told, focus her on English and history. So I'm so happy. So when I speak on panels, and a lot of times they say, well, what's your advice to the younger women? I go, know your math. Put those silly ideas out of your head, because you do need to know your math if you want to invest.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And see, I was good at math and science, and they told me to go pre-med. So that's actually what I did. I actually started college pre-med, and I graduated. You'll love this. I graduated 2 classes away from a math degree. And I'm like, I want to get out and work, and I want to make money. Like, I don't need another degree. And I didn't take it. But I think we also confuse the math sometimes with words that aren't really easily understood. And that's why I really, when I did the platform, and I was like, okay, if I'm leaning into teaching, like, you got to know your basis, like you got to know your alphabet, right? You got to know the terms, but you also got to know what it means, because I remember talking to some very, very smart, very intelligent, University of Hard Knocks guys. And, they would be like, well, your NOI is like basically your cash flow. I'm like, well, no, your NOI is your cash flow if you don't have a loan. And they're like, wait, what? And so they were calculating it for years wrong. And even like a P&L statement. So I think those are things that, like, when people start to look at finances and numbers, it's like you need somebody to hold their hand and tell them what you're looking at. Like a P&L, again, it doesn't have the mortgage principal on it. Right. So if you have a mortgage, you have the interest on there, and you probably would think, hey, I have it, but you don't have the principal. So it's then knowing what to ask and how you can skew the numbers, right? Like, and I gotta go there, Beth. I don't know what we didn't talk about this before, so I don't know what your feeling is on cap rate. But when people are like, I need a 6% cap rate, I'm like, why do you want a 6%? I just ask, like, why do you want a 6% cap rate? Because I know that's a good deal. It's like, is it? Like, let me show you how it could not be a good deal, right? Because you can, and that's like one point in time. And so that's what I want to do with Money Math, is look at, and we have a couple more segments coming out on each of these definitions, because I'm interviewing some of my investors and my partners and saying, how do you really use this definition? Because, at the age my kids are, they're asking, Mom, am I ever going to use this again? Right? Like, that's a typical question. And there's someone like, no, that you will never learn it for the test. Let's go. But this one, I'm like, no, you'll use this all the time. Right. So
that's very smart that they're asking you that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, again, it's a lot of it was those really foundational years during COVID. They were sitting in my office, right? They were hearing conversations, negotiations. And so they really got this entrepreneurial, like, education with it. That's because awesome. The questions afterwards, and kids ask questions about everything, right? It was like, well, why this, why that? And I mean, I remember one time I had to bring them to a council meeting, which the community didn't understand the project we were doing. They came with pitchforks, because somebody told them about eminent domain. I'm like, eminent domain cannot even happen with this project, but okay. But I'm being drilled, on there, and they're in the back of the room like, what's going on? Like, why doesn't everybody like mommy's project, right? And it was a great teaching moment to say, sometimes people don't understand. So when they don't understand, they either get paralysis by analysis, or they get like defensive because they want to believe what they have is true in their realm. So I said it was a really great teaching opportunity to have them in the room.
That's great. I've also taken my kids to council meetings. I was building a shopping center. I bought a 2-story office building.
Yeah.
And people like, oh, you're getting into office. No, I'm not. I'm retail, all retail. And it's a really good corner.
Come on.
Right? It's a really good corner with lots of traffic. So guess what's going to happen to that office building? But we had to go to the council because I had to convince them to allow me to do the Starbucks strip center in the parking lot of the office building before I demoed it. and then build it. And then while we were building it, agree to demo the office building, but I had tenants in there that I had to vacate. And then years later, after COVID, agreeing or getting Wawa to agree to come on the hard corner. And then I had to go back in front of city council and definitely the pitchforks, the NIMBYs. We don't want the traffic that a Wawa brings. But luckily, and that's great for them to experience and see that of the work we do and what society is all about. And I have fought other things myself at city council. So that's the great, that's the great freedoms that we have, but it is a huge education for our kids.
Yeah. And like you said, one of the things too is sometimes you have to go back in front of council because things change or tenants go away or opportunities go away or didn't get done. And a lot of times my clients will be like, well, you have egg on your face, or if I have to go back, and I'm like, no, you have to explain the pivot. You have to explain what happened. People understand. They may have really wanted that, but if you can't get the deal done, you can't get the deal done. So I don't know if you can hear the hail. Sorry.
Is that hail?
It is hail. I hope it's not too loud.
I was wondering what that was. Someone was scratching on your window. So which asset class do you like the best?
I like mixed use multi-tenant. Like that is really what I like, because I like, again, that risk mitigation of when retail or office is up and residential is down. You kind of have a little bit of that insurance, I call it, like with the different curves and where you're at. But lately, industrial's been killing it right now. So that's been a great one too.
Yeah, industrial's hot in South Florida. Retail's hot. I used to say I'm not going to invest with anything with a bed in it. And now I've LP'd with hospitality and I've LP'd with multifamily. But I can still say nothing with a bed in it as far as I'm concerned as the GP. They can handle that. But I don't mind investing and getting. I like giving a check and getting a check. That's a beautiful thing.
You should try bourbon. I'm telling you. I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh. But I think a lot of times with people like that, one of the things that I talk about, especially in the course on our onboarding, is like, what's your time, talent, and treasure triangle? What's your risk tolerance? And what's your goals? Because a lot of times I think people get into strategies because they're invited in, or it's the buzz thing, but it's not in alignment with what they can do, right? Like you can put money in an LP. If it goes sideways, it's not gonna break you. Yes, you'll probably be sad and you'll probably, it'll be painful, but it's not gonna, kick you out of your house.
Right.
But for somebody to say, I'm going all in multifamily and I've never done it, like that could be way out of alignment and a lot of risk with it as too. So, really looking at what works, because I'm on the tail side of a condo building that we developed, and I will tell you, like, I don't ever want to do another condo building, because now I've learned so much on the other side and the different ways and from that experience. But like, I don't know, it's just, it's not where my passion lies.
Yeah. I think, and I think that's so true for people that are just getting started also. I just had a conversation with someone last week about this. And I said, they were saying, well, how can I get started? And I always say, well, get as many OMs as you can, or decks, read them, go on the webinars, listen to the calls, listen to the other. They said, well, I don't know any questions to ask. That's okay. Listen to the other people asking questions. I may be on the call and I will ask questions, and you'll learn from other people asking questions. And then if you have 100,000 saved, only invest 25. There's plenty of deals that you can get in for 25. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially when you're starting. Right?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts to how people get started besides those two?
Yeah, I go back to that time, talent, treasure triangle, that you only have so much time, you only have so much talent, you only have so much treasure. So if you have, like you're saying, $100,000, invest 25 in this, and maybe invest 25 over there, and maybe save 50, or watch how it's going. I am a diversity risk mitigation girl. I don't think put all your eggs in one basket, but that's also how I was raised. I think too is partnering with people with different scars, and that goes to that talent. Like if you don't know how to put a deal together, partner with somebody that is. There's a lot of people that are. I'm going to watch it because I know a lot of my investors are probably going to watch this. It's like older in age, not old, but older in age, seasoned.
Watch it.
Seasoned.
Watch it. I say I'm well healed.
Well, well, now it's like our kids, my kids and I have a totally different definition of old. So older, seasoned, they're seasoned. And I love investing with them because they have different scars. They've invested in different things. And so we partner really well together, and we'll outline exactly like your role is this, my role is this, and do that. That's, I think, a great way to get in. And a lot of times, like I would say my first 3, 4, 5, 6, I would say my first 10 deals, I didn't put any of my own money in. I put some of my like commission and my fee, but I didn't put any money from my bank account out. And so it's also how you can structure those deals to do something like that. And it's all about risk, right? So again, if you don't have a lot of money, you need to find somebody with a lot of money. And then what can you offer them? Can you offer them like talent? I know a bunch of the hockey guys, they run construction companies, or they work for a construction company, and then they side hustle and flip, right? And they'll partner with somebody that'll put all the money up. They'll do all the sweat equity, and then they have a split. And it's like, that's great. Like stay in your lane, but just figure out where your zone of genius or your lane is, and go that way.
Yeah, that's what I've been trying to tell the women in the retail brokerage industry is, like I said, you rep Starbucks, you find a site for Starbucks, and then you hand the package over to the developer. And maybe they need the commission, but maybe offer to put half of the commission in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that way you just get started, because who knows better of that deal being a success than the rep from Starbucks, right? Like, so the broker that represented them. So if they believe in the site, and then I believe that people say, well, the developer is not going to let me in. How do you know until you ask? You've got to ask the question.
Yeah. Well, or call us, right? Because I would say a lot of women that are developers are also going to be open to opportunity, right? You're an investor. I'm an investor. I think it's interesting that I don't get asked to invest more. And people are like, well, I thought you'd want to take over the deal. I'm like, no, I'm also looking for ways to invest my money that doesn't have my DNA in it, right? So it's interesting that people
give a check, get a check.
Yeah, people put those beliefs on that like aren't true, right? So we make the story up before we ask the question. So ask the question. And when you're talking about that Starbucks, one of the big retail ones, I say big because the quantity that we did was Subway. Subway called me for one of my listings and was saying, hey, can we put a drive-through there? I'm like, yep, it's already permitted. And I just asked the question because I'm not a real estate agent that takes orders. I think that ship, ladies, has sailed. We don't need to do that anymore. You need to ask questions, seek to understand. And I think that gives you another step in the game. So I had asked them, what's your criteria? What are you looking for? And I had just gotten back from my CSC. I'm like, I think you're in the 15 to 1750 at the time. And I said, I think we can get you into less with more seating and a drive-through in these areas. Would that work for you? And by asking good questions, and I said, what other sites are you looking for, right? Because if they're a chain, they're looking for something else. What's your criteria? What else are you looking for? How many stores do you want to put online this year? And he liked my questions so much. He goes, can you have lunch with me tomorrow? And I said, absolutely. We sat at that lunch and he goes, here are the top 10 places that we want to have a store in the next 24 months. We rent. We are not developers. We'll own some of it. We'll go in with, he laid everything out. And he goes, if you can find these, let's do a deal. And we did. And we probably did 5, 6, I don't know now. I can't even think about how many, but it just kept going on because it was like, okay, that one's done. Okay, we're going to this one. And it's asking questions and making sure you understand what they need and what they want to be able to help them properly. Because the first deal we did with Subway was a land deal right across from a college where I just asked the owner, I said, can you do seller financing? And he goes, yeah. I said, okay, great. I just kept asking questions because again, this is my first development. I didn't have much money. And I was like, okay, well, I want to get my commission as a seller credit. Can I do that? I'm like, okay, so that goes towards my equity, right? So I'm like, we're not price fixing, we're not commission fixing, but for reference, my commission was 3% at that time. So I put 3% in, and then we negotiated some different credits. So, I was coming in with 5% plus part of my development via sweat equity into there. So now I only had to go out and get 10%, 15%. And when we go to math, like we started with this, right? Break it down. So if you need $100,000 in a deal, don't think, oh my gosh, I don't know anybody that's $100,000. Think, do I know 10 people that have $10,000?
Right.
Do I know 20 people that have $5,000? Okay, let's do this deal, right? And breaking it down to that and seeing what's manageable is the way I think people get started. Is stop thinking, I got to be here at somebody else's step 50. Just get started.
Or don't, like what women were telling me, I don't have $1 million. I'm like, where'd you get that from?
Yeah. Why do you need it? Why do you need $1 million?
That's a big deal.
And why do you want to put that much money into a deal? Right. Like, let's stop. Let's back up on that one too. Like, even if you had it, you shouldn't put it all in this one deal.
Exactly. So what's the session you're speaking at Invest Her in a few days in Orlando?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm speaking on good deal, bad deal, new construction. And then I'm on a panel for the pod mentors of how successful investors level up. So
that's great
sessions. I'm very
passionate. How do successful investors level up? Give us a sneak peek.
For my book, it is getting in the room with people that have different assets, different scars than you do, and that want to be or that where you want to be. So I look at, if I want this portfolio, if I want this investment structure, if I want to be at this net worth, I got to find those people that are already at that or above it, because I'm not listening to the people in the room that are saying, this, that, and that aren't there yet. So I seek, I always say I have a hunt list. So every year I have the 10 people I want to meet. And so far I've been able to hit it intentionally or unintentionally sometimes.
That's awesome.
They just come into your life. And, and it's also putting yourself in rooms with people that want you to level up, because they know you leveling up levels them up too. And our one of our mutual friends, Dali, is amazing at that. She is just a badass in that sense. So it's getting in rooms with women that want to see you succeed.
Now you're a member of GoBundance?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How long have you been a member?
So I actually joined last February on my birthday. It was my present to myself. So.
Happy birthday. So I've only been a member for a few months. One of my favorite things they do is the 728.
Oh, yes. I didn't understand what that was the first time. So
I said, like, what is 728? So
I don't know that formula.
Yeah, that's not math, right? So for the listeners, GoBundance is a group. It started with a men's group. Now they have a women's group. They focus on health, wealth, giving back, and just good connections, right? And there's sometimes the women and men do things together. Many times the women do things, the men and women do things themselves. But there's a presentation once a month called 728, where a person that has gone from 7 figures to 8 figures they present, 2 guys interview this person, and they show how this person got there and the ups and downs getting there. And I just love it. And it's, the only thing I don't love about it is there's not enough women being interviewed. So we got to do something about that.
Definitely.
Right?
Yes. And I think it's the one thing in that call that stands out to me. Like you said, there's not enough women that present on it, and that it's up and down. Right. It's up and down. It's up and down. Like I remember one of them, he was just like, oh God, that year almost did me in, or that almost killed me. And I almost claimed bankruptcy here. And you're like, wait, what? And you're at 8 figures? Like what? And it's like, yeah, because I just got off a call today with one of my partners. He's like, there's always something. And there is. And I think as women, we always seek for that perfection. And if we can't have everything amazing, we feel like we failed. you have to get comfortable with it is a process. It's a flow. It's sometimes it's kind of like a yin yang, like you kind of come back around and you go back. So one of the things I talk about in my presentation on Good Deal, Bad Deal is the 3 steps that I go through with any deal is identify, evaluate, and finance. Like, how am I setting up? I'm identifying the opportunities, strengths, weaknesses, bad stuff, evaluating everything. What do I have to work with? And then how do I stack this, right? How do I finance it and get it cash flowing? And I have this image where it's kind of like this line going around these circles, and you have sometimes have to go back. You have to come forward. And I think that we don't give each other enough grace when you have that pivot, that switch, that softball sometimes that hits you out of right field. But we need more women at the table putting the numbers out there. And that's one thing I love.
We need to talk about the numbers.
We need to talk about the numbers. Like we have, I don't know. Are you in a pod yet? Are you in a pod yet?
I am.
Ooh. Okay. We got to talk about
I asked about the numbers.
And and so for the listeners, we have this thing called a one sheet where it's really it's not only your personal financial statement, it shows your net worth, right? But it also shows those different pillars, right? Is contribution, health, your family, your spirituality, like, and charity. Like, those are the different pillars. So you kind of evaluate and track yourself on each one of them, because you're building a life by design. You're not building a life by accident. I accidentally made money in real estate, right, and now I have to figure it out. No, like, I want my kids to see I give back to charity. You come to volunteer stuff with us, like, and that is where I feel it helps you be more well-rounded as a person and give you that grace. But it's saying the damn number. Like, that's one thing I love in our pod.
Really, on my first pod, I said, so what is your all's net worth? This is mine. Right? I said, and they're like, what?
Throw the book on the table. Let's go. Yeah.
But yes, so if you guys are interested in GoBundance, men or women, you should check it out. The other thing that I love is they really preach about having adventures, right? And I've had a bucket list forever, before it was even called the bucket list. And I just shared with you before the call that one of the things was going to the Red Rocks Amphitheater to see a concert. And I got to do that last week and see Sting. And it was like, check, but it was so much fun. My girlfriend and I, after ICSC in Vegas, we said, what are we going to do? We're going to take 3 days and go do something. And she went on, she goes, I know one of your bucket list items is the Red Rocks Amphitheater. And she looked it up and she said, Sting is playing on Tuesday night. I said, done. So done. So what a great, I mean, I've been in a lot of masterminds. I've been in a lot of groups, but having a group that keeps you accountable for you to fulfill your adventures at 64, that's pretty freaking awesome.
It is. And it goes back to, it's not just about the money, because once and somebody said it on our pod call this week, she was evaluating if she had a money problem or another problem. And she goes, if it's a money problem, I know how to fix it. And I was like, ooh, that's an interesting statement. And she goes, well, yeah, because, and I'm in the same belief, is once you know how to make money, you can always make money. Like, you can always make money, and you can always make more money. It's how much are you, again, your time, talent, treasure. How much are you willing to spend? How much are you willing to grow? But it's also making sure that, like, you have that impact, because when you leave this world, you're going to have your memories, you're going to have your experiences, you're going to have your impact. You're not going to be able to take your bank account with you. Yeah.
That's like, I don't know. And from a woman in GoBundance mentioned, I love reading. Yeah. And I'm in the middle of listening to Love Money, Money Loves You. Have you?
Oh yeah, where it talks to you?
Oh my God, it's so weird. It is so weird. But first of all, so everyone get this book, get the audio. Money is talking to you. The book, the author is money, literally money. It's weird as shit, but excuse my French. But what was so cool is one of the chapter, I'm like, literally, I've listened for 4 hours. I have 4 hours more. I've never listened to such a long book except for maybe The Alchemist. But anyway, or not even, like Ayn Rand's book was a very long book.
The Alchemist was awesome. That was like one of the faster reads. Yeah.
But the part in the book where it says, don't say I need money, because if you say I need money, then money is going to give you bills. so that you can affirm that that's an affirmation that you need money, you need more bills. So don't say I need money. So that's awesome.
Oh yeah. Well, and we don't plan enough when we do like budgets, and we don't plan enough for our vacations. And those are the times that let us relax and reset. And I always say, anytime I go on vacation, I'm like almost starting another company, because I come back so just energized and my brain is thought, and there's different experiences, and you bring that into what you do. And that's, I think, why I love development so much, is I can bring these experiences into developments, into structures, and enhance the community by doing it. And like one of my bucket list items was this year, I have nieces and nephews, and they're about in their 20s. And I've always wanted to, basically just say, I'm going to rent a house and just come. And like, you do whatever you want. There's no agenda. Like, ideally, we either eat breakfast or eat dinner together, and that's it. And I was able to do that this year. And so I rented a house in Grand Cayman. And so I took my boys scuba diving. That was another bucket list. But yet my nieces and nephews, they were able to come do their own thing. We paid for all the food, the housing. So all they had to do was get there, which they could ask my grandma for a plane ticket, and then whatever they wanted from an adventure standpoint. And it was so fun, because that's an experience, I don't know.
Those memories and real estate allows us to do these things, right? Yeah. Investing allows us to do these. So two things before we go. So Delee's here, and she's like, best mashup ever. So excited to watch this live. So hi, Delee.
Oh my God,
we have like 186 people watching us live.
Oh, so awesome.
Thank you all for, not eating dinner yet and just watching us and hanging out with us. So how do people find you? You have the academy, you have the do it for you, or how do they find you, and what are your services that you offer?
Yeah, the easiest way is katiekim.com, KATIEKIM.com, or on social media at the Katie Kim. And that will connect to me, and then we can go from there. But really, it's getting started. Like we said, just get in the game.
Well, and again, anyone that has some extra time, InvestHer is the 1st through the 3rd in Orlando. I'm sorry, I'm not going to see you afterwards at Mandy's GoBundance retreat. I'll be there.
I mean,
thank you. Sneak over for a day. Thank you so much, Katie. It's great getting to have you on the podcast, and for you sharing all of your wonderful wisdom for our women and men. We have a lot of men that watch also. Mm-hmm. So follow up with Katie. She's, as you all know, I don't teach. I bring women. And if you want to learn, go learn from the women that can provide the teaching, because that's not me. I want to expose you. I want you to encourage you. I'm not going to educate you, but I love you all, and you all need to be investing. We need to get that now up to 25%. Thanks, Katie.
And there are many opportunities out there now to invest with little funds. So no excuse.
All right. Good night.
All right. Thanks, Beth.
Bye-bye.